In a non-leap year like this one, we have a double Torah portion, Acharei Mot Kedoshim. Acharei Mot translates to mean after death, Kedoshim, holiness. So when these two Torah portions come together, they come to teach that after death, there is holiness. What is holiness? This Shabbat is a day all holiness. We have entered into the realm of holiness. Rabbi Yehuda Lov teaches us that the world of matter is divided into 6 dimensions, and they are all measurable, all weighable. East, west, south, north, up and down. But when Shabbat enters, there is the additional spiritual 7th dimension, and that is Kedusha. We are commanded this week, Kedoshim tihiyu, ki kadosh ani Adonai. You shall be holy, because I, the eternal your God, am holy. Who among us would be so bold as to describe ourselves as holy? Of all the adjectives and attributes, who among us would dare to ascribe holiness to our own selves? And yet our central Torah text today demands no less: be holy. We are likely skeptical of anyone who would self-profess to be a holy person. Anyone who calls himself a saint is by definition anything but saintly. And yet here it is written, Kedoshim tihiyu, you shall be holy. How do we show ourselves to be holy? Through our deeds. Now, some of the mitzvot of the Torah are assigned just to the Kohanim, others just to the Levites. Some mitzvot are only assigned to the men. Others are only assigned to those who live in the land of Israel. Some mitzvot are job-specific, only for farmers or only for judges. But this essential mitzvah, Kedoshim tihiyu, is assigned to everyone. The 13th century biblical commentator and philosopher Nachmanides asserts that God does not ask the impossible of us. Therefore, the capacity to be holy is not restricted just to those among us who may be spiritually gifted. God assures us with this mitzvah, you shall be holy, that anyone can attain holiness. Ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they live by the ideals set out in this holiness code. The Chatam Sofer suggests that Kedoshim tihiyu is actually not a mitzvah at all, not a command, but rather a promise. Live by this code, God says, this ethical Torah code. Do all these things, and don't do these other things. And the result will be an elevated life, a meaningful life. The basic human need to matter will be met and will be matched so long as you pursue this promise, this shot at holiness. In Jewish eyes, a life of holiness is not a life of otherworldly meditations or spirituality that floats a few feet off the ground. Rather, in Jewish eyes, a life of holiness is rooted and anchored in the here and now. Holy deeds, one after another, get played out in the streets of Toronto and in the streets of East Jerusalem. Sacred acts take hold here in business dealings and in the courthouses. Acts of holiness are found in the laboratories and in the hospitals, in the here and now of the factories and the oil sands, in the here and now of City Hall and Queen's Park and Parliament Hill. Sacred deeds are found in social media and in our homes, exactly now. In our online schools, and yes, in our online synagogues as well. And if you look at the form, Kedoshim Tihiyu, you'll notice that it comes in the plural. You, plural, shall be holy. A Jew cannot aspire to holiness alone. We can aspire, but we can't achieve it all on our own. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel teaches that Judaism is an attempt to prove that in order to be a man, you have to be more than a man. And I'm sure here he means mensch. He means to be a human being, you have to be more than human. And he continues, in order to be a people, you have to be more than a people. Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, was made to be an Am Kadosh, a holy people. We know this. It's how we function best. Holiness is achieved in the context of community, and that's what makes this life in lockdown and isolation so much harder. We can't gather around mourners in a Shiva home as we would to offer sacred words and sacred deeds. When a community, a congregation, a people, a country of citizens devotes itself to the pursuit of holiness, its members support one another and reinforce one another and inspire one another towards holiness. And we do this mitzvah even when it's hard. We aren't commanded to be holy just when we're feeling strong or just when we have deep pockets. This mitzvah is for all days and for all circumstances, even when it's hard, even when it's unpopular, even when some will hate us for it. This is the very definition of a mitzvah. Do it because you have no choice but to respond. And where does that call come from? Some would teach us, like Echad Ha'am and Mordechai Kaplan would teach us, that the voice comes from our people, past, present, and future, that we belong to a civilization that demands holiness of us, that we belong to something larger, and that something larger has a claim on us as a people, as an Am Kadosh, as a Goy Kadosh. That we belong to something larger that we might call history, we might call the story of the millennia. But it has to be more than just sociology. Because the second part of the mitzvah gives the rationale. You shall be holy, ki kadosh ani Adonai, because I, Adonai your God, am holy. According to our Torah text itself, it is not only about sociology and civilization, and not about history, and that something larger is beyond the horizontal plane but reaches towards the vertical plane. Be holy not because of how you belong, but because of what you believe. Our faith in God may be thin at times, but God's faith in us and in our ability to rise to the occasion of holiness even in this broken world, that is steadfast and strong. That is what Ki Kadosh Ani Adonai means. Be holy because I am holy. Be holy because you were created in my image. Be holy because I brought you into this world for a purpose, a sacred purpose. Be holy because you are a source of the sacred. That is how I built you. That is how I created you. to be an emblem of me, God says, to be a spark, to be a glimmer of my holiness. So even now, dear congregants and guests, we may feel silenced by this lockdown. We may feel invisible by this lockdown. But God sees every deed. God hears every word. God notices every intention to rise to the occasion of Kedusha, of sanctity. And there's no better day than the sacred day of Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.